Hello, friends. We are here in John chapter 9. This chapter is about maybe my favorite Christian in the entire Bible. The man born blind is such a cool person, and I really love how he's able to just kind of like tell off the Pharisees in a way that I don't think I've seen anybody else in the New Testament do. Even Jesus he's harsh, but he doesn't school him quite like the man born blind. So what happens in the beginning of the chapter is that you have this man born blind, and the disciples ask him a question, a multiple choice question. They say, this blind man, I love how throughout the whole chapter they keep on acting like this blind man isn't standing right there in the room with them. So this blind man, they're talking to him, or they're talking to Jesus about him, and they're like, this blind man, why is he blind? Is it because of his sin, or is it because of his parents' sin? These are the two options you have, Jesus. He is clearly blind because somebody sinned. Was it him, or was it his parents? And Jesus is saying, it wasn't because he sinned or his parents sinned. I think this is important to stop right here and just say, I think that still today, there's this idea that if somebody is going through something, or if somebody has some sort of physical ailment, or if you're going through some sort of sickness, that it has something to do with some sort of sin in your life. And this is not true. And Jesus states it clearly here. And I'm pretty sure that's what the entire book of Job is about. If you are going through something, or if you have cancer, or if you have migraines, or if you're born blind, or all sorts of things, it doesn't mean that you have gotten into sin and you're in some way being punished by God. That is not how it happens. If it were, I feel like there are so many people that I see that are truly evil people that are very successful. And they just go throughout life, and the Bible talks about these people that succeed and they prosper even though they're evil. And it's like, sometimes bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. And yet, in all of it, just like this man born blind, God is able to work his good through it. And in this instance, God knew from the beginning of time that someday Jesus would come by and he was going to heal this man born blind. So that's why he was born blind. They said, is it because of his sin, or is it because of your parents? And Jesus says, it is so that God's glory can be shown through this. And Jesus takes mud, spits, and he makes mud, puts that on his eyes, and says, all right, go to this fountain and wash off. He washes off, and the man who's born blind can see. Now this creates quite the stir. Everybody starts looking at him and they're saying, isn't that the guy that's always here begging for money? It looks just like him, but he can see. And here again, he's like, look, if anybody's asking, I am that person. I'm standing right here, people. I'm the person born blind. And they're like, well, how can you see? And he's like, Jesus healed me. So the leaders, the Pharisees, they come over and they're like, okay, how can this be? They start asking him, and he tells them. And they say, okay, we don't know if we can believe this. We don't know if this person was born blind. So they call his parents and they say, look, I know that this is our son. I know that he was born blind, and I know that he can now see. So the evidence is in. His parents say, this person was born blind, and now he sees, and we don't know how. Everybody else knows him because he was standing at the gate. And so you have all of this overwhelming evidence. And so they said, how is it? And they said, why don't you ask him? He's of age. You can ask him. And so they bring the blind man back again. And they said, how did this happen? And he says, you guys have already asked me. And he's like, do you guys want to be his disciples too? And they said, we do not follow him. We believe that he's a sinner. We follow Moses. We don't know where this guy comes from. And this is what I think is the funniest part. His response is really great. He's like, that's a mystery, isn't it? And he's saying, he healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he came from. And he says, he couldn't have done anything outside of the power of God. He's just giving them straight up logic. What I think is so interesting about this passage is that here is a man born blind, and yet he can see. And here are these people that can't just physically see, but they have knowledge of the scriptures, they have power, they have intelligence. They're the teachers. They're the people that should have more sight than anybody. They should have spiritual sight. They should have physical sight. They should have everything that they have. They have the evidence right in front of them, and yet they cannot see it. They are so full of themselves and so full of hatred toward things that might get in their way of power. They're so full of sin, and yet they think that they are clean. There's no excuse for these people. They are as blind as can be, and yet this man, who everybody thinks is the biggest sinner because he was born blind, it can see. And so they end up throwing him out of the temple. It means he was probably excommunicated. Like, he could not go back to the temple ever. Essentially, he can't worship at the temple. They're throwing him out of the center of Jewish living. And so they throw him out, and Jesus finds him. And he says, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he said, who is the Son of Man? And he essentially says, I'm the Son of Man. You're talking to him. And he does believe. And he bows down and he worships Jesus. And somehow in this conversation, he says, I was able to make you see, and I'm able to make other people blind, because of how polarizing I am. Those who cannot see can see. He's using a physical picture to show a spiritual truth. His sight. He's been saying all along that he's the light of the world. You can't see anything outside of light. And here he says, these people are blind. Now, I think it's interesting. They speak up and they say, so we're blind? And he says something that I feel like I need people around me today to hear this. The people that I grew up with, that I went to the same church with. And yet they walk away from God. They are also given all the evidence. They know everything that I was taught. They know everything that the people around them are taught. They have the Word of God in front of them. They have Google, and they can find these things out. And yet, when you talk to them, you try to bring them back to their faith, they close their eyes to it. They don't want to hear it. They shut it out because it is inconvenient for them to open their eyes to the truth that God is someone other than themselves. Anyways, that is John chapter 9. Have a great day. Bye.